everybody, and welcome to MangaPod. Get out of here, Sam. We're a weekly podcast.
Yes, Sam. Get out of here.
Get out of here. Which we all get together after we read all or part of a manga, and then we discuss it with friendship, love, and lots of spoilers. This week we are discussing Wandering Sun, or Horu Musuko for the Japanese, butchered Japanese pronunciation. Volumes 1 through 3, chapters 1 through 25. I am Erin of Happily Erin, your host, and with me are two of my three lovely co-hosts, as well as a very special guest. We'll have everybody go around and introduce themselves, please.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dodger. Get out of here, Sam.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lou. Bye, Sam.
And there's me, the PedanticRomantic.
Say bye, Sam.
Oh, bye, Sam.
Good.
Good. Great. We did it. We're so professional.
If you guys have never joined us for a MangaPod before, what we like to do is give you a short, spoiler-free description of the manga that we read, aka a summary that'll be read by our wonderful guest, and then we will give you a spoiler-free recommendation from each of us, whether we think you should spend time going to read this manga or not. That way, if it sounds like something you're interested in, and you don't want to be spoiled for it once we get to spoiler section, you can take your leave, go read it, come back and watch the VOD of this on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/happilyerin, where all the previous manga pods are hosted. So let's go ahead and have a spoiler-free description. Good sir.
Shuichi Nitori is a 5th grade student who likes to bake and has always been something of a feminine boy. When he transfers to a new school, Shuichi is mistaken for his 6th grade sister on his first day. Then he ends up sitting next to Yoshino Takatsuki, a tall, boyish girl who everyone calls Takatsuki-kun. They both have secrets they can't let anyone know. The series deals with issues such as being transgender, gender identity, and the beginning of puberty.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's go ahead and do spoiler-free recommendations. Would anybody like to go first?
I can go first. I really loved this manga.
Yeah.
I thought it was so precious and like heartwarming at times and heart-wrenching at times, and I wanted to give hugs to like almost every character. And yeah, I think that it tells the story in a really natural way of like a little boy realizing that he wants to be a little girl, and it's just like, oh, sweet baby. It's good. It's really, really good. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I also loved it. It was a fantastic read. I really want to read all of it, and I want to watch the anime. And it was, I don't know, it was such a good experience. I know I have a few trans friends that have all read Wandering Sun.
Yeah.
And from that perspective, they all just regard it so highly as being a special piece of a special piece of fiction. And I don't know, I genuinely enjoyed it, and I think people need to go out of their way to read this. Especially if you like manga that pace itself out, kind of like how Cross Game does, because I felt it reminded me a lot of Cross Game. Just not about baseball.
Not as much baseball, no.
No.
Well, I'm unfairly biased in that I am trans myself, so it is that special place in my heart that this manga occupies. But regardless of that, it's such a delicately told story, a real sense for the humanity of its cast. Really something everyone should read. Obviously a wholehearted recommendation.
Awesome. I agree 100%. And it was such a fast read, too. It goes by really quick, but without, the pacing is really quick, but without losing any of the heart in any of the story. And it's just such a sweet tale. And like Brooke said, heart-wrenching at the same time. And it just feels so genuine and refreshing. And I agree. I think it's one that everybody needs to go and give time to reading. And I think it'll also give people a better understanding of kind of the struggles and what goes on. So I think it's so sweet. It's such a good story. And I'm really happy that we read it for MangaPod, because it's one that I had been wanting to read and never took the time to do it.
I've recommended it for a long time and I've never read it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad to.
I'm glad we did it. Yeah. So we all recommend it. Go. read it. And so if you are... What?
I was laughing while you were talking about how sweet and wonderful this manga is because somebody in chat said in all caps, "Y'all read Wandering Sun? That shit owns." I was like, less delicate than the reviews thus far, but still accurate.
Yeah, I was gonna say no less true.
It's true. It does own.
Awesome. Well, there you guys have it. This shit owns. So go and read it. We are going to jump into spoiler section. This means if you do not want to be spoiled for something, it is time to take your leave, go do your thing, come back and watch it later. We ask that everybody in chat not to spoil anything past what we read, which is chapter 25. Did my lights flicker? Did anybody see my lights?
I don't.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I don't know what that was then.
Both?
Now it's time to take your leave. Countdown, please.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I can't pick a god.
I don't know
They're
how
all
they're
God.
all so perfect.
Everyone is God.
They're all so
Yeah.
perfect. There is no God.
There is oh no.
No, there are plenty of God.
There's too many.
Fuck it, Makoto's God. There we go.
Makoto's
Mako can be God.
Mako.
Mako-chan.
Everybody. They're all gods.
All
right.
They're all sweet. Stop.
Should we start with the question that we usually start with? Which is, what were you expecting before going into this manga? Or what were you expecting going into it if you hadn't read it? Pedantic, have you read it before, or have you just watched the anime?
Yes, I've read the whole manga.
Okay, awesome. So, like, kind of what you were expecting going into it, like reading it however many times you read it before, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I started with the anime, actually. So, expectations going into that, I think I had heard that it was about transgender kids, and I had sort of little conception of that being me as well before I watched it. So I just had it queued up in Crunchyroll and marathoned it on a whim. No expectations really, but it was certainly rewarding to watch it when I did get around to it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah. I didn't think I expected the story to follow what's the main kid's name?
Nitori?
Nitori. I thought that it was going to be pretty much entirely about Nitori's journey, and I think it's interesting that there are other kids that are like affected and other kids that are just as important, like involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it ended up being a much wider spread cast than I was expecting it to be. I was definitely expecting it to be the focal point, like just him or just her, like just the two main characters. And I loved the fact that we had so many more brought in, because it just brings up so many different like issues and like ways different people deal with the same thing. Which I think is really important, because it's not always the same journey, and people aren't always going about it like the same way. They aren't taking it in the same way or anything like that. And so I loved having different perspectives with it and different relationships, which I wasn't expecting. Like, I was expecting the relationship between the main two. I wasn't expecting his sister, like this like I wasn't expecting such a big cast and like having so many different people interact too.
Mm-hmm.
My expectations going into this manga were set such as I had high expectations. I was always told that this is a very well put together manga with likable characters and a very realistic and grounded story, but without being too cynical or without tinting everything with without presenting it through the lens of rose-colored glasses. Like, it was a very grounded understanding of the types of issues that these people would go through. And it's what I got, but I didn't expect to, like, I've always was very adamant about avoiding spoilers for this manga, because this is the type of manga, like anything that's character driven like this, the big moments really define the characters, and I feel like if those moments are spoiled for you, it could maybe skew your appreciation for the characters or detract from it in any way. So going into this manga, my expectation was that I was going to get a story that was endearing, but without being, I guess, too adult in nature.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like they could have told this story with high schoolers, and things could have been more graphic. And I'm glad that we got it with the younger demographic, which also kind of plays into the idea that, you know, gender is something that people can struggle with that early on in life, or maybe even earlier.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I genuinely enjoyed this manga. It was really,
Yeah.
really good.
I was actually going to say that I like the age that they chose as well, because I think the way that different kids react is fascinating, right? Because you have the kids that are like really supportive, and then the kids that have just decided that they, you know, are gonna not be supportive at all. And then you have these really interesting kids that are like confused and don't really know how to take it. And I think that those characters wind up being, whether or not I'm furious at them, like, those characters wind up being the most interesting to me in the moment. I think, because the way that they're written, I think, is pretty believable. Like, 1 second being nice to the person and the next second being awful to the person, like, obviously not really, like, they like reflect their discomfort on everybody and wind up being really abusive. And it's man, the way that all of those scenes were written, I was like, oh God, I just want to hug everybody. I just want to hug everybody.
The sister is kind of like a little bit that character where she's kind of accepting of her brother, but not entirely. Like, she's not completely accepting of Nitori. And it really shows in terms of like her growth as a character when she comes to his defense in the last little bit of the reading that we did. That she had to take that step, or she wasn't, you know, she wouldn't go that far before that until like now she's kind of like growing to beyond, oh, this is just a thing he does, to, oh, this is something that she is as a person. Like recognizing the change in how Nitori perceives themselves.
And there's a lot to that relationship between Nitori and Maho. And over the course of the story, there's ups and downs to be had still. They're not necessarily over the hump. But in general, these sibling relationships, you'll have the dynamic where a sibling is jealous of the attention another sibling is getting, and they can already get messy. But then you add on top of it the specific dynamic you have going on here. And it's really fascinating to see play out. And what you mentioned with the different kids all having to react to it in their own ways. The circumstance of these boys like Seiya seeing Nitori dressed as a girl, and then having to grapple with the thought, oh wait, that's a guy, does that make me gay? And then if it does, is that a bad thing? And how do I feel about all this? It's really interesting to see. And it's handled excellently.
Yeah, it's never made the butt of a joke, which I think a lot of times it can be. And it's handled very tenderly and very seriously, and just kind of showing it and writing it out. And I really appreciate that it's not handled like a joke. There's nothing distasteful about the way it handles it.
Yeah, because, like, again, because they're kids, they say things sort of thoughtlessly. And it's always addressed that it was a thoughtless thing to say. Like, whether or not the person is called out on it, like, you can tell that it was written that way on purpose. Like, it's, that fucking kid on the bus. Dude. That fucking kid on the bus.
Listen.
He's one of the ones where, like, the way that he behaved, you could tell that there was like some fucking shit going on in his head, and I was just like, what are you doing? Like, he pissed me off so bad.
There's like some deeper things that he's going through. It
Yeah,
totally is gonna like he's
sure.
gonna be a character that goes through some sort of journey later on. Like we're gonna see
Yeah, I
whether
think
he's
so,
in
too.
denial
He's
or
showed
he's
up too many times.
Yeah, showed
right?
up too many
Yeah.
times. He's acted mean so many times. Like that character, he's definitely a character that's like projecting, I think.
And then like
but
did
does horrible
a
stuff.
couple nice things.
Yeah.
And like doesn't seem to know when he's doing shitty things. I don't fucking get that. Like I do, but
He's just
frustrates
young.
me
He's
so
a
much.
child. And that's nice.
Yeah.
What's nice about them starting the story with them so young is like there is time for if there's going to be redemption arcs or like anything like that, like they can happen, which I'm like, he can be redeemed. I mean, he's doing shitty things, but he's a child. And so that's seeing them react like children would, or just having those different thoughts and the conversations and then just doing horrible things. It's very nice to see, or not nice, but like watching the story and how it's kind of impacting the kids and how they're seeing themselves and how they're growing up and dealing with it.
Another thing that I didn't expect was for them to make a friend who's like a trans woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like an adult woman, right?
Yes.
She is in some ways one of the more regrettable elements of the series, just because she is sort of played for gags.
Yeah.
In that way, we praise the story for avoiding, specifically when she's getting kind of touchy-feely with
turkey
Takatsuki.
gags.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah, I
just gross
agree.
and sort of reinforces stereotypes about predatory trans women.
Yeah.
She does get a bit better over the course of the story in terms of the presentation of her. But it is not a perfect series.
I mean,
Yeah. I was a little off-put by the handling of her character as well.
Yeah, and like I thought that it was really bizarre that she, like, as a trans woman would say to what's the name of the
Takatsuki?
Takatsuki, that she would say to Takatsuki, like, oh, you really are acting like a girl right now, or like, oh, this is like, it's evident that you're a girl. And I was like, why would you say that when you know what's going on? Like, it was
like in theory they should know
me.
what that character is going through, so they shouldn't be adding fuel to the fire that is the confusion that they're going through.
Yeah.
Because clearly, if there has to be something going on where, you know, this is the first time that she sees her in a skirt. Like, why?
Yeah.
Shimura, the mangaka for Poromusco, definitely learns a bit more as she goes along. I mean, this is just all based off of her own research. So there's elements like this where there's definitely some gaps in her understanding.
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing I will say that I liked about that character and specifically was how she was dealing with her mother, and how they kind of presented this idea of a family that's struggling to come to acceptance.
Yeah.
With someone
but not
that
completely estranged, which I appreciated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a brutal exchange too,
Yeah.
Because the mother kind of lays the strained relationship at the feet of her father, but then as she's walking out the door, Yuki lets her know that she's got her own issues with resenting her that need to be addressed.
Yeah. And it was such a short such a short scene, but it was still very impactful in what it was displaying, and just how just because she wasn't just completely tossed aside or estranged, like, it doesn't mean that everything is a-okay. Like, there's still different parental interactions as well about how parents take it in and do it, like, deal with it themselves. Because we're seeing it with the parents of everybody. Like, I'm very happy that the parents are so present in this manga.
Because they're important.
They're so important. And so seeing the different parents and different familial, is that the word? I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. Interactions, is also very fascinating. And I really appreciate that the mangaka has that prevalent in here.
Yeah.
The handling of parents in general in Horomusuko is really strong, I think, because a lot of the time, especially in these types of stories, you can get this sort of one-sided presentation of parents as oppressive or uncaring, one-dimensional force, but they're much more nuanced in Horomusuko, and we get to see a whole range of presentations of them and some legitimate compassion and support as you would expect out of parents.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They're not just those parents that like show up on Christmas and they're like, I've been backpacking through Africa for the last year. Have you survived
Right.
by yourself? I'm glad that they're there. Actually.
Yeah, one of the scenes that I really loved is Takatsuki with the mom, and like just finally just like letting it all out. Like, I don't want to wear dresses. I hate all this girly shit. Like, I don't want to do any of this, you know, just getting really frustrated. And I think it was really believable for pretty much everybody in her life, including her mom, to try and push back on that with like a reassurance, like, oh, but you look so cute in dresses.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, but you know, but you're such a pretty girl, right?
Yeah.
I think that that's really common. I'm not trans, but I wanted to wear boy clothes all the time when I was a kid, and I fucking hated wearing dresses. And if I said stuff like that to my mom, that's exactly what she would say back to me. It's like, but you look so cute in dresses. It's like, that's not the fucking point. Like, that's not who I am. That's not what I want to wear, right? So I just thought that interaction was so real.
Yeah.
And I was glad that Takatsuki is such a strong character. Is like the first one to try going out and like being a boy, and it really like takes the lead on all of these next steps in terms of like presenting themselves. I think is cool.
Yeah. Should we talk about Nitori?
Yeah.
Let's.
Precious.
I think
I want to hug Nitori always.
Always, all the time. Pedantic,
the
what were you
interesting
gonna say?
thing in coming back to this manga was the fairly frequent use of dreams for Nitori that I hadn't remembered. And those are, I think, where the show gets, or excuse me, the manga gets to be its most brutal, not only just in terms of the contents of those dreams, but then the context of this being the thoughts that Nitori is sort of plagued by. Incredibly heavy stuff, but reflective of very real fears and anxiety.
Yeah. That is kind of where it gets really heavy, like the most. Like, it'll really hit in those dreams where it brings you back of, oh wow, this stuff is hard, and the only way, like, their subconscious is kind of bringing it to them fully. If they have any sort of interaction, it holds on to it no matter how strong, and like brings it up in dreams, or just like is constantly there. Some of those dream sequences were really difficult to read,
for sure. And the very real aspect of saying to yourself, I'm not going to cry anymore when people let me down and when people upset me about this. Like, I'm not going to cry anymore, but you still do, you know? Yeah. Oh my God. I just want to hug Nitori every fucking chapter. Like,
every time. I'm just going,
yeah. But I did like going back to the sister. I liked that we had this cool juxtaposition of the sister, and also what's the name of the friend who first gave Nitori the dress?
Chiba?
Chiba, yeah.
So I liked that we had both of them in different ways, sort of like treating Nitori like a I don't know how to put it exactly.
Dress up doll.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and you could tell that like there was a moment where Chiba realized that that's what they were doing, and they didn't really they weren't really being a good supportive friend. And I think again, like when we had the whole like modeling agency, like that was the first time that the sister realized that that's what she had been doing too. Yeah, and I thought that was really good for Nitori to also maybe realize is the difference between people who are really supportive and people who aren't, you know?
Chiba is one of the most interesting characters in the whole series. In Japan, actually, she's hugely popular.
Interesting.
It's this sort of like tsundere-ish, like very serious, cold, but empathetic aspect her character has. But what struck me in these early chapters was just how precocious she is. A couple lines stand out. There's one where her mother asks why she's going to church, and she says, I've done terrible things that I must atone for. And it's this ridiculous line, but it's said completely seriously from her. The sort of weight that she views it as having. It's incredibly endearing.
Yeah.
And of course her being that kind of a character, and then having her be separated from all of her friends.
Yeah.
I was like, poor Chiba.
I was so happy when everybody like patched everything up.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Even more so than being a story about transgenderism, Horomusuko is more so about relationships between people. And one of its most excellent aspects is the very natural way in which these relationships move and form and reform. Because the relationship between all these characters, among all these characters, is constantly shifting in this very organic manner. Petty arguments and silly self-exiling by some of these characters socially.
It's such a middle school thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Someone in chat, Jolt Aurora, said I loved her scene with the lunch tray. I love that scene so much. That's such a good one.
Yeah. No, and I really like the aftermath of that scene where she's saying, "Oh, I'll apologize to the people that make the food, but I'm not gonna apologize to them."
Yeah.
Which I was like yeah. She's so interesting. Yeah, because she's the one we see very early on, being interested and like curious about it. And then we really see as she gets older, she's just a little bit more withdrawn and just doesn't know how to handle situations very well, or how to handle her feelings, which is such a teenager, like preteen thing to do. I don't know how old they are. 13?
At the start of the manga, I think it's elementary
11?
school still.
So
they're
like
fifth years.
Yeah. So like
and
11
going
or
on
12.
6th years. And then the manga the anime starts off with their middle school entrance ceremony, and that's chapter 33 of the manga.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The
manga goes up until right after high school graduation.
Okay.
Oh.
Interesting.
So I'm trying to think of how to ask this without spoiling the anime. So does it cut out? And
That's
if
what I
it's a
was wondering,
spoiler, you don't need to answer.
No,
but,
no spoilers.
Yeah,
it's very interesting adaptation.
Okay.
So the events of the manga preceding their entrance into middle school very much are informing all the current relationship status. It's that, constantly shifting web. So we get sort of flashbacks and allusions, but it just sort of throws you into this state of affairs and runs with it.
Interesting.
It's much easier to comprehend everything that's going on in the anime if you've read the manga already, and so have that context for it.
Okay.
That makes sense. Makes sense.
Man, so the anime starts like further than what we've read.
Yes.
That's so crazy.
Interesting.
See, I'm wondering where in relation to the story, like the anime started airing. Like-
The anime started airing in 2011. The manga started in the early 2000s, like 2002 or 3, and the manga ended in 2013.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so what I'm wondering is where in the story, like what chapter were they on when the anime debuted?
I'd
Because-
imagine
It came out in
Because I would
they're
imagine they're already in middle school at that point.
around chapter 100. They may have been completely finished with middle school, honestly, by the time the anime started.
Interesting. Trying to think. What about Mako?
Mako
great.
is adorable and precious.
Yeah.
I agree. Mako is a fun character that definitely seems like the voice of reason and sees everything from a very level-headed perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Came in at a very good time as well,
Mhm.
where it was nice to have a fresh face to the cast, but also a different perspective. Yeah, a new friendship.
Yeah.
Just a different perspective, especially coming in after all of this shit kind of started hitting the fan.
Yeah, it was Mako was kind of like the silver lining, right?
Mhm.
Because if people hadn't read the group diary, Mako wouldn't have been interested, I don't think, in like meeting them, you know.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it wound up being like the good thing that came from a horrible thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The whole diary, everyone like, well, they're sharing a diary. We're gonna share our own diary. We're not gonna share our diary with them. It's like, but we can
Such
all
a
just have a
Chiba thing
diary.
to
I
do.
was like, oh my.
Wait, did any of you guys have like group journals?
No, never.
It was
Definitely
I did, which is kind of like it reminded me of my childhood because I was like,
Yeah.
I remember.
I mean,
this.
I would exchange letters with people, but like full on like bounded books.
Oh my
no,
God.
I think
We
I
would
We
do
would
that.
get notebooks and we would
Yeah.
trade them back and forth and
Yeah.
like write things in them, like notes to one another or just doodles and things like that. But it was only ever like every notebook I had was only me and one other person. I
Yeah.
never had like a notebook that was like a bunch of people all together.
I had a few.
I mean, my daughter
Yeah.
does that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like she has a notebook with her best friend, and every now and then, like after she
That's so
finishes
cute.
her homework, she's like, "Wait, I'm not done."
Aw.
It's such
Just so
a
that they will
it's
do her-
it is
her thing.
totally a thing that happens too,
Mhm.
where it's like this person has had the notebook for way too long, or it's like this person gave the notebook to the person out of order.
Did you even write anything in
Did
it?
you write?
Um,
Oh my god.
But I do remember like having those kinds of feelings. If there was a group of friends and two people in that group were doing something that felt like it was just a them thing,
Mm-hmm.
you always, I think as a kid, you had this conflicting feeling of like, oh, I mean, yeah, they can do that. That's fine. But like, why don't they want to do that with me?
Mhm.
You know?
Why
The
am I not
social
special
dynamics
enough? Am I not special
really
enough to be a part
nuanced.
of that? Yeah.
Yeah.
It has a very understanding look at these interactions that kids do genuinely have. So, and that's another thing. It's not solely focused on one thing or another. It really fluidly brings in all sorts of different aspects of puberty and childhood and like transgender, like all of this gender identity. It brings it all together. While giving each one the time it needs to develop, but also delicately handling everything else at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is great.
Oh, every time Takatsuki got her period.
Oh my god, my
I was like-
heart.
You poor thing.
Yeah.
Like this constant reminder, you know,
Mhm.
I felt so bad for them.
Hmm.
In terms of how often that happened in the story, though, I felt like it was every other chapter.
It was
Yeah,
mentioned a lot,
pacing on
but
that
it was
was-
also mentioned sometimes because they were trying to get out of something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I've got cramps.
Bye. I love her where they're just like, I can't believe this is happening to me. I have to wear period panties.
I know.
I feel ya. It's just so it just.
I'm
like-
curious.
Go ahead.
Sorry for interrupting.
No,
I was
fine,
gonna
fine.
say I'm curious how they handled pronouns in the original Japanese.
That was something I was curious about.
Yeah,
as well.
I was curious about that too.
Yeah, it's made somewhat simpler by the fact that Japanese doesn't really have third-person pronouns much for referring to other people. So where it would come up more so is in referencing yourself. So boku versus watashi for me. Generally, Nitori, I think, sticks with boku throughout. If my understanding of the Japanese is correct.
Okay. Where would you say their pronouns are right now? Just like, are they they, or?
That's a tricky issue, and I think there's multiple interpretations that are valid. You could sort of go with Takatsuki, he, him pronouns, Nitori, she, her pronouns, because they both explicitly say, yeah, I want to be a boy, I want to be a girl, and so that's what they're identifying as currently. Or you could just sort of be safe and keep it neutral and go with they, them. Yeah, I think either is valid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was something I was curious about, because like you said, the Japanese language is it's different too, and so translating it would be interesting. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you guys think about the whole modeling thing that's going on?
I thought it was super aware, like the fact that from the get-go they're like, she doesn't really want to be a model. Like, she's just obsessed with this idol, and that's what she wants. She doesn't want to be a model. And I thought it was interesting that was from the get-go. Like, there was never a point where they were trying to convince you that she really wanted to be a model.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, she very obviously just wants to meet this idol girl.
Yeah, but that's also like the last time that we saw her treat Nitori as just like something to sort of use to make things easier, right? And so I'm hoping that's the last time. But they are kids.
They are babies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The inclusion of modeling in this story is somewhat noteworthy for the fact that and a handful of other industries has kind of been a respite for gender non-conforming people. There's that, and there's theater, which also features relatively prominently in that the class puts on a play. So these elements that have been a part of trans culture, I think, are mindful inclusions on Shimura's part.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's really cool. That's awesome. The whole Seiya date thing.
Yeah.
I was really hitting the sister for a while. Not even gonna lie.
I don't. That was so. I was really, really glad that it didn't go on for very long before Nitori was like, by the way.
Yeah. It didn't become this whole like subplot thing. Yeah. That was something. There was a few times I felt that they didn't drag out. Wait, maybe this is Riverdale I'm thinking of.
Go
yes,
on.
classic manga. Classic gender identity manga, Riverdale.
I remember thinking of this about a piece of media I ingested today. Could be Riverdale. It could be Wandering Sun. But they didn't drag out conflict a lot of times. They resolved things. Whether that was this manga or the manga known as Riverdale. I thought that today.
The fact that it does keep things moving is really nice and really refreshing in the face of how a lot of manga handle this sort of interpersonal strife. Because, as we've noted, it really wants to keep those relationships constantly shifting and rearranging.
Yeah, and continually, like, moving the story along without losing the character development at the same time.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. I mean, 15 volumes is not super long, but it gets all the way up through elementary and then right after high school. So it's got a clear direction and it's moving towards it without wasting too much time.
Yeah, I'm glad Honestly, I'm really glad knowing that it's gonna span like their whole like formative years, you know.
And it concludes on an immensely satisfying note.
Good.
Oh,
yay!
good! Because these, oh my god, so many times manga where you're like, all right, it's gonna be great, and then it just ends horribly with one of them leaving the country on a trip for no reason.
One of the best endings of all time. The final
I
page.
can't wait.
Oh, I'm excited.
I'm gonna just read the rest of it tonight.
Yeah, I kept reading. I kept reading.
And
I
you
was
totally
like,
could because it reads so easy.
It
does.
so
It
fast.
So fast.
It's so
Yeah.
quick. Art. Let's talk about art. What are you guys
Really
feelings on
simple
the
and cute.
art?
Yeah. Shima herself notes in one of the volume after page things a common comment in reference to her art, which is the sameness of the characters and the somewhat difficult time you can have in telling them apart. And then also she uses relatively sparse backgrounds throughout a lot of it.
Yeah.
But it's a very delicate touch. It's a really humanizing style she has, I think.
I agree. I think if there was too much detail or way too much, it would take away from the characters and like the story that they're telling. I think the simplicity really adds to the atmosphere of the entire thing.
I agree.
Though I did have trouble telling characters apart for a while.
Same.
I was like, wait, are you or are you?
I get Nitori's mom and dad mixed up.
Oh my god, all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
I think it's just the mom has glasses. That's like my only save.
But they have the same hair. Like
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, wait. Okay. You're one and the same, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I get them mixed up. And like you said, their backgrounds are not used that often. Like there's a lot of white or black just plain backgrounds happening.
I think in terms of the aesthetic of this manga is when I drew the comparison to Cross Game earlier, more than anything, it's in terms of how it presented itself, both in how the art was very, very simple and very clean, but also in terms of how the dialogue was used with in conjunction with the art, where it was just limited dialogue to keep things moving. And it never really obstructed from my sense of where the character was, even though there wasn't a very defined background.
Yeah. The visual pacing is really strong, for sure.
Yeah. Definitely. It's just so sweet. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say that I'm looking through, just skimming different titles that the mangaka has worked on.
Battery.
And just like, yeah, they worked on Battery.
Yeah, she's done character design for both Battery and Aldnoah Zero in terms of anime productions aside from her own. She also has a manga, Aoi Hana, about lesbian girls. I guess that's a given, huh? And that has an anime adaptation as well.
Yeah, like you can totally see the design in Aldnoah Zero. Like if you just look, you can totally see the similarities between the characters' faces. And same with like Aldnoah Zero and Battery. You're like, same person definitely did this.
Yeah.
The swoosh of the hair and the bangs, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, the art is just so simple. And the anime is so watercolory.
The anime is gorgeous.
It's
It's a excellent production. I've got a video breaking down sort of the cinematography and storyboarding of the first episode because it's fantastic, and it's got to be anime original because she doesn't use backgrounds too heavily.
Right.
It's an anime production worthy of this manga.
Oh, that's awesome.
Huh.
That's cool.
That's interesting. No, I was just looking up the staff for the anime, and it was the same director that did Fate Zero. Yeah.
Oh.
Normally he does these big bombastic shows. He's Recreators, he's Fate Zero, he's Aldnoah Zero. But this is a much more gentle and down to earth series, but handled just as well.
Awesome. I'm so excited. I'm very excited to watch the anime of this and finish reading.
I know,
the
me
manga.
too. I've got the tab up right now, and I'm like, later.
Soon.
And the anime is written by Mari Okada, who, if you're not too familiar with her work, sort of specializes in these very complicated, messy relationship web middle school dramas. She's done Anohana, among others.
That makes sense.
Aaron.
It makes sense. It does.
I was just watching you like.
Nagi no Asakata.
My collar was confusing me, and then it like when I put it back, it was so far up. I was like, "Who am I trying to be?
Who am I?
Who is this?" Anyway, yes, yeah. Should we wrap up and give our final thoughts and ratings, or does anybody have anything else they would like to make sure we touch on and bring up?
I think I'm good.
I think I'm good.
Same.
Awesome. Anybody like to go first?
Oh, this manga's so good.
It's so great. Because I mean, 25 chapters is pretty standard for us, but these went so quick.
It went by so
where I was like,
fast.
why didn't we read 50? I was like, this was
I
so
felt like
fast.
I read them in an hour.
Yeah, compared to
like it just flew by.
compared to Ghost in the Shell.
Oh my god, I can only imagine.
But it was went so quick. I think I'm trying to think of rating for me. I think I'm gonna give it a 9.
I want to give it a 9.
I want to give it a 9. I'm hard pressed to think of. I guess with the pacing at the very start was really fast, but then it kind of found its footing and ended up being very nicely paced. So I'm trying to think of like why I'm not giving it a 10. And I also think the handling of Yuki was a little not like wasn't to my taste, but overall it's just such a good story. It's so needed. It's such a needed story, and it's handled so tastefully, and it's just so nice to have a story with characters that are going through this that people can relate to, and it's not the butt of a joke, and people are able to just read it and also learn about it, even if they're not going through these kind of issues or like going on this journey. Like they can learn about it, and they're with characters that are interesting and growing up, and I'm just so excited to see where the story goes and how the journey for these characters goes. And the art is so simple and sweet, and they're just also precious. I love the character development. I love the series a whole bunch. So I'm giving it a 9.
Yeah. I wanted to give it a 9 as well for pretty much all the same reasons as Aaron. Everything.
Riverdale.
All the things that Aaron said. Because of Riverdale.
Best
manga of our age. Yeah, I think honestly the biggest thing that held it back for me was that the one adult trans character that they gave us, they portrayed in a weird, like, predatory way. And I was like, why do you got to do that?
Same.
But I'm very happy to hear that she becomes more of an ally and a, you know, she changes. She gets written a bit better.
At least one more adult trans character down the line who's in a fairly different life circumstances, and so gives us an entirely different perspective on that existence.
Awesome.
As for Yuki, I think there's I understand the whole issue with her being portrayed in that predatory manner, but that aside, I think there's a couple instances that I think I won't go as far as saying redeemed, but like the fact that she was in a healthy, it's a good relationship. I'm just looking for another way to phrase that.
Yeah.
But a very healthy and happy relationship. And kind of showing that that you can reach an understanding and create those bonds, and kind of showing that to the younger characters. But you guys gave it a 9. I'm gonna give it an 8 for now, with the full expectation that score is going to go up, because I was starting to appreciate it more. Kind of like what Aaron was saying, the pacing for the early chapters felt like it was going too fast, and there was a couple chapters that I actually had to go back and reread because I felt like I skimmed them because it just didn't feel natural reading it that way. But things do even out later on. So I think an 8 or 8.5, I'll bump it up to an 8.5 is a fair score.
Yeah. But
It isn't perfect. It does have flaws, but it can never be anything but a 10 out of 10 for me personally. It's a very special series for sure. And imperfect as it may be, it hits the nail on the head well enough in terms of portraying this subject matter that it's something worth cherishing.
Definitely. Awesome. I don't know where Dodger went.
No.
She's left. She's out. Ah!
There we go.
But we all... It's like you were never gone.
I was supposed to be stealthy. You outed her. I'm supposed to know.
But yeah, no, we all 100% recommend that you guys go and check out this manga. Go and read it. It's a wonderful story. But this wraps up our discussion of Wandering Sun, volumes 1 through 3, chapters 1 through 25. Now we're going to move on to everybody's favorite game of MangaPod. It's where I read the description for the manga we're reading next week. I'm going to put in lots of blanks so you guys can't figure it out. And then you get to guess it. It's a great game. It's so fun.
I'm excited about the next manga. So excited.
I think I'm going to read the right run. Right run?
Right run.
The right run?
The
Yes,
Jarl of White Run.
Yes, good.
Oh my gosh. All right. I've read this description. There's a hint. I've read this description so many times. I'm going to read it way different the last time I read it because I always read it wrong, but whatever. In a world constantly haunted by demonic predators known as blank, the everyday life of humans is full of fear and suspicion as these monsters easily blend into human society to hunt their hapless prey. However, in this world, there are also a mysterious organization employing half-blank warriors to effectively track down and kill the demons, called blanks or blanks after the huge blanks they carry. These blank warriors are eyed with suspicion and distrust by most of their because of their inhuman powers, but there are many currents flowing in the shadows. From the mysterious mechanization of the blank organization, I don't know that word and now it messed me up.
Machinations.
Machinations. And the twisted ambitions of the powerful blanks to the hopes and desires of each blank. This story follows the fate of blank, one of the blanks, as she sails deeper and deeper into the currents of conspiracies and revenge. Anyone get it?
Abby got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
What?
That was really good.
What?
That was good. No, it was good. I
What?
loved it.
Duger?
What? I liked it.
I liked it. Blankmore? Yeah, that's what we're reading. We're reading Blankmore.
Blankety
No,
blank more.
we are reading Claymore for my birthday
Finally.
pod. Making it happen because it's my birthday pod. If people cancel on my birthday pod, you're out of the pod. You don't
True.
cancel on one of the co-hosts' birthday. Are you gonna sneeze? Bless you.
Yeah. Thank you. That's so sweet of you. You're so attentive to me.
I know your cues. I know your sneeze cues.
That one.
This is so weird. Like I updated the schedule and it didn't change, and I just updated it again and it didn't change,
didn't-
and then I
that's
refreshed
why-
and now it's good.
Oh, now it's good. That's why when I
good.
looked at it, I was like, I'm gonna hope I'm reading the right one. Like I know we're doing it, but now I'm confused because I don't know because it's not there.
I don't know.
I don't know. But there is a change. We are switching it up, doing something we've never done before on MangaPod, and that is we're having a Monday pod instead of a Tuesday
True.
pod.
Monday Manga Pod. It's
Monday.
alliterative.
It is, guys.
True.
Why? We made a mistake 200 episodes
Monday.
ago. So yeah, we are going to be doing it Monday, September 11th instead of the 12th. Same time, same place here. Otherwise, Twitch and YouTube.com/AthleteAaron. It'll be hosted, same thing, all that, just a different day. And we're going to be reading it with Miss Ukazabo. our lovely guest who's come on for Claymore in the past. And we are reading volumes 6 through 10, chapters 28 through 57. This has been on the schedule for a while, and we've tried to read it numerous times. And so I think I kind of remembered by, like, just off the top of my head what happens in these chapters, because so you've probably already read them. But if you haven't, those are the chapters that we are going to be discussing next week. So let's go ahead and shout out our stuff super fast. Aaron of Happily Aaron. I have a YouTube channel. All the previous manga pods are hosted there. Otherwise, it's pretty inactive at the moment. But if you still want to go and check it out, I have a bunch of anime reviews, first impressions, seasonal stuff, as well as a lot of mental health awareness videos. So if you want to go and check that out. And then I am much more active on other social media, Happily Aaron all across the everything, specifically Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat. Post a lot about my baby and Voltron, so if you're into that, come check me out.
I'm Dodger. You might be watching this on my Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/dexbonus. I also have a YouTube, youtube.com/presshearttocontinue. It's mostly shit posts there right now, like,
but
tread lightly.
Good shit posts.
Thank you. I thought of a new one today that is so not worth the effort it's gonna take.
That's the best kind of shit post.
I need to find somebody who has a child that's old enough to say sentences, but not too old for them to make too much sense. So that's like the sweet spot I need to find. That's
so like 3 to 4.
Yeah. I need something in there. No reason.
Shit post children.
Hi, can I use your child for a shit post? Thank you.
I'm sure you can like totally put a Craigslist ad out and someone will reply.
I mean, probably, but I don't know that I would want to meet the parent who would be looking through Craigslist like, somebody wants my child. I don't know what it's for. But, like,
I mean,
maybe.
that's where you specify that it's specifically for a shit post.
It's needed 1 3 to 4-year-old for shit post. And every parent that responds will be like, you should not respond to this. I'm at Dex Bonus on pretty much everything. Come hang out with me. That's it.
I'm Lou. You can find me on Lutex Anime. That's my YouTube and my Twitter. Way more active on Twitter than YouTube. Starting a weekly-ish, maybe. I'm going to try to make it weekly series. Though I did realize today that I need a new microphone because I'm sure it doesn't sound very good.
Aww.
But I have the first episode recorded. I did a thing with Dakota. You'll see it soon enough. It's pretty great. But rather than focus on my channel, go and talk to me on Twitter because I watch a fuck ton of anime. Within the past week, I finished a couple seasons of TQ, Shuffle, Stardust Crusaders, Grimgar, Shimonetta Prison School, Flip Flappers, Ajin Season 2, Full Metal Panic Season 1.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
like the past week. I've been watching a lot of anime.
Ajin, worth it?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Amazing. Like, once you get past the fact that it's done with the CG, so worth it. So good.
Cool.
But is it better than Riverdale?
My favorite anime. My
don't
favorite
know.
CG anime.
I don't know. I mean, Aaron, that's a high bar to clear. That's not really fair to Ajin.
That's true. You can't compete. Nothing can compete with the CG anime Riverdale.
True.
Go follow me on Twitter, Lee Talks Anime. Thanks.
And then there's me, the PedanticRomantic, both on YouTube and Twitter. And in particular, I have a video on Horomusko, which would be of interest. It's empathy through animation, Horomusko. And one of my best videos, I think, because it's so near and dear to my heart. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, we loved having you. You'll have to come
Good
back
time.
for sure. We'll read more Wandering Sun and you'll have to come back.
Yes.
Yes,
Definitely.
please.
Yes.
Good.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for watching us on YouTube and Twitch. If you're watching the VOD, thank you for watching as well. If you guys would like more MangaPod, we have a subreddit, reddit.com/r/MangaPod. The schedule for the upcoming weeks is hosted there, as well as a recommendation thread. If there's anything you would like us to check out, go ahead and post it there. If somebody else has already posted it, upvote them, all that fun stuff. So we will be here next week, same time, same place, except on Monday, not Tuesday, talking about Claymore, volumes 6 through 10, chapters 28 through 57. So we will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.